بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Inshallah ta'ala, we're going to continue in our reading of the first section of the first book, the Book of Knowledge of the Ihya Ulum in the summarized version. After talking about the virtue of learning and teaching and knowledge itself, the author proceeds to give the rational supporting evidence for what was mentioned in the Quran and the Sunnah and the statements of the companions in regards to knowledge and teaching and learning. So we have in Islam textual evidence and rational evidence, right? So Imam Al-Ghazali is going to mention the rational evidences that support the textual evidences for the virtue of al-ilm wa ta'allum wa ta'lim, of knowledge and learning and teaching. Let's recite Al-Fatiha to the soul of Imam Al-Ghazali, rahimahullah ta'ala. Al-Fatiha.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah. The author, may Allah Ta'ala have mercy on him, said, discursive substantive proofs. What is
What
required?
that is means by that, it is, as I said, rational evidences that support the textual evidences that we mentioned about these aspects of knowledge and learning and teaching.
What is required in this section is to know the merit, fadila, and great value of knowledge. The word fadila is taken from fadl, which means surplus. Hence, when two things have a common characteristic and one of them excels in one aspect, it is said to have merit over it or precedence over it. This is true as long as what is considered a surplus is something that adds to the perfection of that thing. If you have grasped this point, then you will not fail to understand that knowledge is a virtue when considered in relation to all other characteristics. But knowledge is also a virtue in itself, absolutely and without the need to relate it to anything else. This is because it is an attribute of the perfection of Allah Ta'ala, the Exalted, and it is by means of it that He honored the angels and the prophets. You should also know that the most endearing thing that people seek, you changed that word to precious.
Right.
The most precious thing that people seek is divided as follows: that which is sought for other than itself, that which is sought for itself, and that which is sought both for itself and also other than itself at the same time. Now, that which is sought for itself is better and more honorable than that which is sought for reasons other than itself. The latter would include money, which is of no benefit had it not been the case that Allah Ta'ala the Exalted enabled people to obtain their needs by using it. Otherwise, it would have been as worthless as stones. That which is sought for itself is felicity in the afterlife and the joy of beholding the countenance of Allah Ta'ala the Exalted.
Here, countenance, put wajhullah. We want to, there are extremes, and I want us to avoid extremes. There is one extreme to, we're talking about relation to belief in the attributes of Allah. And I see us doing that. We have to reject every sense of someone dictating on us their agenda in the name of Islam. We have to reject that stuff. Like I'm talking about, I'm speaking to us specifically in the West, and in particular in the West, African Americans. We have to learn our religion so that we can be courageous when confronted with extremism. Can we put that up? We have to learn our religion well enough so that we can be courageous when confronted with extremism. Can we all put that up? It's very important what I'm getting ready to say. We must learn our religion well enough so that we can be courageous when confronted with extremism. So here, seeking felicity in the hereafter and the joy and intimacy in gazing at the wajh of Allah. So it was translated continents. Some may say face, right? There are two extremes, and we must avoid both of them that has been confronted with us. One extreme is to describe Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala in ways that can outwardly seem to resemble him as to his creation, even if that's not the reality. That's one extreme. So describing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with terms that can lead someone to have anthropomorphic convictions. So translating wajh as face, saying the face of Allah, the hands of Allah, the eyes of Allah. All of these terms can lead to people who didn't learn well having anthropomorphic beliefs, especially in a society that's filled with anthropomorphism. So that is an extreme that should be avoided. Then there is another extreme on the other end, trying to preserve Allah's transcendence and accusing others of anthropomorphism who don't believe it because of their translations, right? So two ends. And we've been affected with both of them, right? We've been affected with both extremes. The middle ground for that I would like us to learn is when it comes to the attributes of Allah, subhanahu wa ta'ala, leave them in the Arabic language. And learn enough so that when we talk about these ambiguous terms, that we avoid putting ourselves in that while knowing Allah is not like his creation. Is this clear? This is very important. That's why I said change the word. So just like we don't walk around saying God, even though in the English language, God with the capital G, as the university students said, it's referring to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But we still say Allah, right? Same thing. Do the same thing with the other attributes. Because there is an extreme of people pushing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has these literal attributes, and that's an extreme. And through translation, they stick in that extreme in the minds of people. Fix it. But also don't go to the other extreme of accusing people of things that they don't believe, just to make your point. That's another extreme. So we don't need either one of those extremes. Is this point clear? Doesn't matter what you think, Nail. I don't consider your thoughts that powerful that I understand you don't understand certain issues. So I like it just goes by with all love. I don't think you understand enough to know what is important and what is not important. You have more learning to do. And I don't mean that to be sarcastic. True, you have more learning to do. And when you learn more, you'll understand better. So stop it. All right. I love you. No, this is a serious issue. And it may not be in a serious issue in your environment. That could be one. That's a possibility. In your environment, it's a non issue, right? In your environment, that is possible. And it also could be possible, which is true too, in your environment it is an issue, but you're not knowledgeable enough to realize how deep the issue is, right? So that could be a reality. All of those are possibilities, right? And each person knows themselves to understand where it's at. But it is an issue, especially in the environments that we live in. It's a major issue. And on both ends. So maybe on one end you see it, but you don't see the other end. In our environment, both ends are very out front, extremely out front, both ends, both extremes. So we have to find a middle ground. Now, go ahead. So that point I just wanted to get, and don't pay attention with me and Nail. Every time, every now and then I gotta smack his hands. He keep putting them in the cookie jar. So that pow, stop. But I love him to death. Go ahead.
As for that which is sought for itself and for other than itself at the same time, this consists of such things as good health. This is because good health is sought after, because it means being free from pain. It is also required because one can then move about and furnish one's needs and requirements. With this in mind, if you look at knowledge, you will find it a delight in itself, and thus it will be sought for itself. You will also find that it is a means to the afterlife, felicity therein, and a way to draw close to Allah Ta'ala the Exalted, something which cannot be attained except by knowledge. Amongst those things that are of the highest rank for human beings is everlasting felicity, and the best of things is that which leads to it. One will never obtain this felicity except by knowledge and action. Action cannot be achieved except through knowing how to act. Therefore, the basis of felicity in this world and the afterlife is knowledge.
This is so important. Read that again. Imam Ghazali, radiallahu ta'ala, who makes this very clear to us. Read that paragraph again.
Among those things that are of the highest rank for human beings is everlasting felicity, and the best of things is that which leads to it. One will
So
never.
here, stop this. For all of us, one Imam said it so beautiful. This the expression. He said, man, we just trying to go to paradise. Like, we just trying to go to paradise. Man. So that's the most important thing, everlasting felicity. We're just trying to make it to Jannah, right? Help us do that, right? And since that's the case, then we need to know how to get there, right? So that's extremely important. Now, go ahead.
One will never obtain this felicity except by knowledge and action. Action
Let's
cannot.
repeat that. Let's repeat that.
One will never obtain this felicity except by knowledge and action.
Again,
One will
please.
never obtain this felicity except by knowledge and action.
Both. You need knowledge and practice. Knowledge alone is not sufficient, and practice without knowledge is not sufficient. You need both. Many times people learn, but they don't practice, and that's going to be against you, not for you. But then you got people on the other worst extreme is they practice without knowledge, which is worse than knowing and not practicing. Why? Because when you practice without knowledge, your deeds are not valid. You're doing it, but it's all invalid. But when you know and don't practice, you're sinful. But you can always practice because you know what to do. So one state is worse than the other, but both states are bad. So don't be of the former or the latter. Combine the two. Al-ilm wal-amal. Knowledge and practice. Naam.
Action cannot be achieved except through knowing how to act. Therefore, the basis of felicity in this world and the afterlife is knowledge. And hence, knowledge is the most superior of deeds.
Right. You
This
follow? Because you can practice if you don't know. And since everlasting happiness is contingent upon you practicing, you must have knowledge. Hence, knowledge becomes superior, right? And listen, we don't have a healthy respect for knowledge, and we need to fix that. Seriously. We need to fix that. If I do nothing, and collectively with you, we do nothing else but put the pure knowledge of Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah in front of our people, we've done a lot. If we don't do anything else but put the pure, authentic, continuous, connected knowledge of Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah in front of our people, we've done a lot. If we don't do nothing else. So reading these books, Imam al-Nawawi, Al-Ghazali, books of As-Sada, all these things we're doing, just that alone, even if we did nothing else, just making our people aware that this rich Sunni tradition exists is a humongous benefit. If we just do that. Now we want to do more. We want to practice too. We want to become. But don't devalue what the value of what we're doing. Is extremely important. And it is so important that we must work hard to it's the norm in our communities. Right? It has to be the norm where reliable Sunni books and information is just like drinking the coffee in the morning. If we can get there, that would be so, so great. Where people just not talking just to be talking. They actually learn something. They really know. They don't have to be scholars. I'm talking about even the stuff they talking about, they know. They really understand. I'll give you something. Something happened to me, and it was just so alarming to me. I'll make it quick. I think I told you the story. A guy was telling me about rules of marriage. And then he asked me, or am I Sunni or Shia? Because he was just, I don't know what the heck you talking about. Where you get this stuff from? Right? He's talking to me and he's telling me rules that ain't rules according to no school. What are you talking about? You're just making stuff up. And he, in his mind, is on the sunnah. I said, what madhab you follow? He said, what is that? And I said to myself, you ain't even know what a Sunni is. And you ask me, am I Shia or Sunni? You wouldn't know the difference if I told you. You didn't even know what a madhab is. He said, what's that? I said, huh? I said, Hanafi, Maliki, Shafi, Hanbali. He said, what's that? He asked me, am I Sunni? And my point wasn't that he didn't know. That's not my point. All of us don't know some stuff. But you talking authoritative, making legal rulings, and what is essential for you to make those legal rulings, you need to know. And you didn't even pay it no attention. Do you understand my point? Not that he didn't know. That's not blameworthy in and of itself. What is blameworthy is that you're making legal rulings as if this is the rule in the religion, and you don't even know what is necessary in order to have a position like that. Do you follow what I mean? Like, you can't make legal rulings without following the madhab. You're not qualified. So even if you're right, you're wrong. Even if you're right, you're wrong. You're just making stuff up. Or repeating what you heard without even knowing the basis for what you heard. Because you can't follow common people as if they're mujtahidun. You can't. So even if you're repeating or parroting, you need to be having reliable sources. So you need to know what is reliable sources to repeat. That's why I asked, what is a madhab? What madhab you follow? Because if you're just repeating the madhab, then okay, that's what you're supposed to do. And it is very possible that you're talking of a madhab. But knowing what you're talking ain't according to no madhab. If you understand my point. For us, because for them, like, I don't need all that. I'm Muslim, I'm Sunni. You don't even know what a Sunni Muslim is. Right? And this is the point of Imam Al-Ghazali. You're not going to be successful without knowledge and practice. You have to have knowledge. That doesn't require being a scholar. It just requires knowing what you're talking about when you talk about something. You don't have to be a scholar, because we got this concept in our mind that you don't have knowledge unless you're a scholar. No, that's not true. But whatever you're talking about, you need to know for sure that's correct. It's a valid position. Even if you're not a scholar, you know some stuff. Whatever you know, make sure you know it right. Right? That's it. You don't have to know everything. No one knows everything. There's always some knowledge to be added. And by the way, I am not a Shia. I'm not from the Shia. I'm not Shi'i. Uh, go ahead.
This is, in an absolute sense, the merit of knowledge. But the types of knowledge vary, as do their respective merits according to their precedence. As for the merits of teaching and seeking knowledge, they are quite obvious from what we have already mentioned. This is because if knowledge is the best of things, then seeking it is seeking what is best, and teaching it is benefiting others with what is best.
Let's stop here. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Listen, sometimes, وعليكم السلام. We're having a do-over, right? We have to. We've done a lot of great work as a people to get us where we at today with the access we had. And that's, may Allah reward everyone who preceded us and worked at every stage. But at every stage, as you gain an access and information, you have to improve. You can't stay, in your previous state. You have to improve. That's why you have access and knowledge. You can't stay the same, right? When you know better, you should do better, right? Do not allow laziness and arrogance to block us from developing to be the best we can be, individually and collectively. Do not allow laziness and arrogance to block us from what we can be. That's so important because it's easy to happen. We have to continue to grow. And I'm telling you, our elder generation, may Allah reward them for all the good that they did and continue to do. They're passing away. They're getting old. They're not able to do the work that needs to be done. They just can't. They're getting old and they can't do it no more. And they're still struggling to get us to understand. I was with one of those elders. I want to share something with you. It was amazing because sometimes you want a thing, but it happens when Allah wants it to happen, not when you want it, all the time. But so I had this desire to speak with a certain famous person among our elders, African American. And during this month of the Prophet, ﷺ, Allah put us together more than once. And I had some intimate conversations with that person, right? And I felt from him that, listen, man, I carried the torch as long as I can. Y'all young guys got to step up. That was his state talking. His words were in that vein, but his state was louder than his words, right? Sometimes we say the state of the person speaks louder than their words. His state was begging us to improve. And the message was clear for me. As if he was saying to me, listen, I know what you want from me, and you're right, but I can't do it. You have to do that. And you have to train others younger than you to do it, because you're going to be like me too. And what we need to do, me and you don't have enough life to do it. That was his state talking. Literally. I said, Subhanallah. And if you've been around enough in our communities, you'll see how important that is. Right? If you've been around enough, really been around, not some young whippersnapper who just come along and still got your mother's breast milk on your breath. Talking about, some stuff. No, I'm joking. Right? Uh, you realize how important this stuff is. We've spent decades as a people engaged in extremism with no knowledge. Just repeating and parroting and quoting and never learning. And we all know that on both extremes and even in the middle. We have to fix that. The only way we fix it is by learning. And there is a certain amount of knowledge that everyone must know, right? And we should ensure that everyone knows a certain level of knowledge by which they can practice their religion properly. Like, everybody has to know that. Then there are levels of extra learning that becomes a communal need, then for optional levels. But that base level, we have to ensure that everyone gets it. That's a lot of work. That's a lot of work. And we need all of us to assist to do that part, just the first level. I want to ask you a question. I've asked this before, but I'm hoping it change one day. How many of you in your areas, because you're all over the country and all over the world, have regular Sunni trustworthy books according to Ash'ari, Maturidi Creed, Hanafi, Maliki, Shafi'i, Hanbali fiqh, reliable tasawwuf, books, texts, chains of narration that are taught regularly in your masjid, regularly. At minimum, weekly, once a week. I gave you a very specific description. Regularly, weekly, multiple times during the week. One day, hopefully daily. Books in Aqidah, Ash'ari, Maturidi, with the teachers, with chains of transmissions. Fiqh, Hanafi, Maliki, Shafi'i, Hanbali, books. Tasawwuf, books, chains of narration. Hadith, books in our communities. Realistically, regularly, not once in a blue moon, not a retreat, not some guest teacher. Regularly, that's what goes on. Where's my glasses? Hold on one second. All right, I'm looking. Be honest. Let's be honest. Be honest. It's regular. Right? Because we all over the country, and it's a lot of people. We cover every state, right? Online right now. Right? So when we look at all the people, right? Every one of us have a responsibility in ensuring that that is established in our locality to our extent and our ability, even if it's in your homes, right? You have a responsibility. Right? Even if it's in your homes. You follow my point? You have a responsibility. So if that's missing and you know it's missing, then you have an obligation to learn as much as you can, right? To do the best you can within your capacity. But it needs to be regularly. This regularly, it occurs. Because the people need it. They must have it. Imam Al-Ghazali said, if they don't have it, they can't make it to Jannah. No ilm, no amal, no as-sa'adatul abadiyya. Period. So if they don't have it, how are they going to practice something they don't have? Do you understand my point? They don't have it. You can't practice something you don't have. So you have to establish it. And it don't need to be a building necessarily. It may need to be in your houses. You and your friends. You and your family. You and your children. You and your neighbors. Preferably, if it could be in a masjid, that's great. But sometimes because of extremism, you can't even teach in the masjids. They don't teach and they ain't going to allow you to teach. Sometimes that's the case. But it has to become the norm. Do you follow my point? This is what we're striving for. May Allah make it easy for us. May Allah make it easy. And that's extremely important. Right? And I'll give you, I know even for me, it's hard in my area to find authentic classical Sunni Islam. It's very difficult. Like I could go 100 miles each way, and that's almost impossible to find, which technically is sinful, right? I could go 100 miles north, south, east, west, and find difficulty where it's regular. I'm not saying impossible, because it does exist, right? But difficult. And I live in a heavily populated area of Muslims. right? It's difficult. So that means we have a lot of work to do. We have a lot of work to do. It's not something that's light. And we can't just be content that it don't exist. Yeah, mashallah, I'm all right. No, you're not all right. Because since it don't exist and you all right, you have the responsibility to make it exist. No, I'm saying they do exist. Not enough, right? They do exist, right? They do exist. Not enough. For the need I'm talking about, right? We have a greater need. Look at this. Do you remember during COVID when they had the crisis with the formula, the baby formula? Or they was even having it with water and toilet paper and all that stuff. There was a need and not enough, right? There's a need, but not enough. No supply for the demand. That's what we have. We have a demand, whether we know it or not, to learn our religion properly. But the supply of that religious knowledge is not abundantly available. And we have to change that. That's my point. So may Allah make it easy. So don't take these things lightly, right? That's my big point. Don't take it lightly. Don't take it lightly. And that's my push. I don't see myself qualified to do anything. I don't, personally. However, I do realize if I don't do it, it may not happen. And then I'm blameworthy. Because I can help, right? I saw a post that really resonated with me. That one of our people put up on their Facebook page. The meaning of, I don't remember the exact words, but I saw it in passing, that if you're trying to build with somebody and you have to tell them to carry bricks, you're with the wrong person. Something to that effect. But it really like, bam, it hit home with me. If you're trying to build with someone and you got to tell them to carry bricks, you're building with the wrong person. That meaning, we're trying to build an ummah and everybody not carrying bricks. We all have to do our part, whatever that part is. You got to carry some bricks, man. That was really strong to me. It stuck in my mind. So let's do our part, right? Let's do our part. And we can do it. We just have to have high aspirations, right? We can do it. Barakallahu bikum. What's today? Wednesday? Maybe later on today, I want to discuss something. I had a review and I had a relook at something. So maybe tonight, if Allah facilitates, between Maghrib and Isha on the East Coast, I'll come back. I want to have some scattered thoughts about something that I been reviewing over the last couple days. And it's related to this. But, I got to think about it. If I get the time, I'll come back on. In the meanwhile, please study. Please keep good notes and, let's keep going, inshallah. بارك الله بكم وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.